of the offseason. Let's talk about some underappreciated Sooners returning for 2025. Coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube, and hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, let's talk about some key underappreciated Oklahoma Sooners. These are the guys that, okay, they had good seasons in 2024, but are kind of flying under the radar a little bit as we go into 2025. Who's somebody that you're thinking of that meets that criteria?
Look, I'm going to be honest. One person that we need to be talking a heck of a lot more, one player that we need to gas up constantly, one player that I feel like we need to always be talking about, Robert Spears-Jennings. I really don't get why we're not seeing his name fly up on more boards, especially like for safety draft and best safeties in the country, etc. That dude is all over the place. Not only is he an elite blitzing machine, I mean, we watched him go in there and he strip sacks, he gets good sacks, he takes the quarterback down at key components of the game. It's like you can tell that Brent Venables has an appreciation for Robert Spears-Jennings because in key components of the game, he always sends him head first. I love that. And that's something that I'm not going to lie, we need to be praising way more. And I'm surprised that we're not hearing his name more often around draft boards and stuff because he's got all the tools you need. He's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the capabilities. We've seen him in coverage. All he's got to do is refine his coverage skills. But John, I don't understand why we're not talking about Robert Spears-Jennings more.
I think by the end of this season, people will be talking about him a whole lot more. You know, he was getting a lot of buzz in the first half of last year and played great. I mean, he was a turnover forcing machine, whether it was interceptions, forced fumbles. He was wreaking havoc in that first half of the season. He was playing great ball. And I think, you know, it's his first full year as a starter. And anytime that happens, you're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have some good games, some games that you'd like to improve upon. But this year, it's going to all come together. Like, this is one of the more intriguing players on Oklahoma's defense because of everything that he can do that you mentioned. He's great off the edge on the blitz. He's really good in run support. He's a great box safety. He can play well in coverage. He's got a good eye for the ball, good nose for the football, and just has a good feel for how to rip it out, knock it out. I mean, how many forced fumbles did he have in the first half of the season? It was crazy. Right. And then he had an interception as well. I mean, the dude was just creating so many splash plays, tackles for loss, sacks. So I think by the end of the season, I think he will be mentioned among those, you know, top 100 safeties that often get drafted because he's got all the tools and he's got all the measurables, he's got the size, and I think he'll test well, you know, when it comes to NFL pre-draft stuff. But right now, it's still a little bit of an unknown because, again, so much of the focus on last year's defense was on Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman. But Robert Spears-Jennings, RSJ, he's going to be getting a lot more buzz and a lot more eyeballs on him this year because he's going to be a key leader on this defense. He's one of those guys that has been a part of every single Brent Venables season. He came in that 2022 recruiting class and has been here. He's took his time. He's been patient. He's waited his turn. Now it's his time. And now it's his time to lead from the front, and similar to a guy like Grayson Halton. You know, Ethan Downs was kind of the leader along the defensive line. Now you have a guy like Grayson Halton that's stepping up and stepping into a more significant role. And for me, that's my underappreciated guy on the defense. So much of the focus and the talk ends up with R. Mason Thomas, my dude, Jaden Jackson, my other guy, Jaden Jackson, or Dominic Williams, the addition of Marvin Jones Jr., that we forget that Grayson Halton was second on the team in sacks last year. He was second on the team in total pressures, according to Pro Football Focus. And the guy just stepped his game up in such a big way. You know, coming out of his first two seasons, the talk was consistency. He just wasn't consistent enough. Both of those off seasons. I remember asking Ted Roof about it after one of the spring games where Grayson Halton had 2 sacks in the spring game. He's like, yeah, great game. Just need him to be more consistent. Well, that 2023 season, we started to see a little bit more from him, but it was last year where he really broke out. And I expect that he's going to be another significant contributor to this team this year, even though he's still being, I think, underappreciated. He's not being considered, a starter necessarily. People talk about David Stone all the time, or Jaden Jackson, or Dominic Williams. Grayson Halton has the ability, I think, to be one of the best defensive tackles in the SEC. And I think he's going to create a lot of buzz for himself this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, because he just goes out there and works hard. And we had high expectations of him over time. And all he's starting to do is really live up to him. Robert Spears-Jennings, as well as Grayson Halton, have done a great job of just continuously moving forward and showing that development that can be done at Oklahoma. We always ask the question, give me some examples of development. What does development look like for your team? And keeping it a buck, that's your two right there. Two perfect examples on the defensive line as well as in the secondary of players being developed by the coaches and showing up and showing out. They both have the tools. All they need to do was be more consistent. And we saw a lot of that last season. And I think Grayson Halton's going to be able to do that this year as well. That defensive line room is a little full, but we talked about this numerous times, John. The most important thing for a Brent Venables defense is having enough defensive linemen to rotate. You don't want these dudes playing 700 snaps. You want them about 300 to 400 snaps. That way their bodies are still fresh. If you plan on pushing for a national championship, you got to go 3 deep, especially because you'll be playing like 16 games. Which, of course, is still obscene at the collegiate level. But at the same time, unfortunately, that's the game today. The game's the game. So you want to make sure that you have bodies that can handle the rigorousness of the SEC and the playoffs and be able to rotate in and out on a consistent basis. Maybe give a dude a rest a game because, he got banged up the game before. You don't want to have a massive drop-off. And I think Grayson Halton provides you with that to where if he's starting or if he's not starting, you're not going to see a drop-off either direction. And that's a big plus for a defense that the goal is to be one of the best in the country. Brent Venables might be building that for everybody today. And then him and Jim Nagy finding even more diamonds in the rough that you can throw out there. Sooners have a very, very positive future in front of them.
What about on the offensive side of the ball? Who's somebody that we're not really appreciating or is going underappreciated right now as we are, at 3.5 months from the regular season?
I know it's funny because I think when you look at that, it's typically low-hanging fruit here is going to be offensive line, John. You probably want to talk about somebody that Bill Beatonbow has been working with, trying to build up and grow. I'm going to go a little bit on the opposite direction. I'm not going to hit the low-hanging fruit because we're going to talk about these players even more in depth in time, but I think, honestly, Xavier Robinson is one that's really being underappreciated right now. That Alabama game was legendary. It was one of those games where you're like, where the heck did you come from? This is one of those games where, this was your breakout moment. This was your moment of showing everybody that you, for real, is the truth. And there's a reason why Oklahoma wanted you, and we were able to get you over Iowa State because Iowa State was pushing hard. And he goes to Iowa State, I'm going to be honest, he probably starts game 1, and he's still running wild for them, over 1,000 yards. And so Oklahoma was able to lock that down and get him in, and he showed us that, he was ready against, Alabama. Unfortunately, he got dinged up and it wasn't as effective against LSU, and that happens. But, yeah, you got to appreciate the fact that he came in as a true freshman and was like, nah, I'm ready to do it. Just go ahead. Whenever you're ready for me, I'll be able to – I'll take the reins. And he did at the end of the season when we needed him the most. So I think he's going to be truly unappreciated. You bring in Jaden Ott. He's super dynamic and he's put up massive numbers. And so now, as long as in this time, his ankle should be a heck of a lot better. It's been some months. You're going to get some dynamic running back play. And I think that Xavier Robinson needs a little bit more love and be talked about a little bit more going into next season.
Yeah, that Alabama game had everybody, even the head coach, questioning DeMarco Murray's running back rotations for the season. Like, where's that been? But no, he's a dude, man. He's just a dude, and he's a guy that you can lean on in the run game. You mentioned offensive line. I think Heath Ozida is the name that comes to my mind because you were struggling to find youth along the offensive line that you could hang your hat on for the future. Well, Heath Ozida kind of became that guy last offseason. Now everybody's trying to replace him with Eddie Pierre-Louis. We'll see. Aside from Colton Sully of the Oklahoman, who had Ozida still as his starting left guard, we'll see what transpires in fall camp and who ends up winning that job. But, yeah, that's a guy that just continually just gets better and better and better. He's, didn't really play a whole lot as a true freshman, played a lot last year, had some ups, had some downs, but showed that he's got something that you can continue to build upon. We're going to talk about a player that's really flying under the radar in the recruiting rankings, but not with Oklahoma. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.